in itself. Of course he starts it behind me. Flickering the lights! Hold on, that's Hello everybody, my name is Kayla Rundle and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I am at the Kuntz Company machine shop, and this is another brand, a part of Gwatney Performance, otherwise known as GPI, and today we are going to be putting my brand new engine block on the Engine Dyno, which Kuntz Company, they have an Engine Dyno here. I've never seen anything get put on the Engine Dyno before, so we'll see how the startup is after all the work that we've done to the motor. And I gapped the piston rings myself and found the bearing clearances and punched in the pistons and etc, etc, so it'll be interesting. I'm really excited for the very first startup. Even though it's not in the car, the chassis dyno tuning video will be coming soon, but then we have to get the engine in the car when that time comes. So I'm excited to see it start up. We're gonna put the brake-in oil in, get it running, so she'll be healthy. Hopefully. I'm really excited to show you guys this video and we'll see how it does. So I'm just filling up the pre-lube engine oiler with the Driven Racing Oil BR30 5W30 weight. This is only used on the engine dyno to break in the engine, and this does help prevent damaging dry starts, and it connects to the engine with pressurized tank with an air compressor, and then you can watch the oil flow through the rockers. This is just to protect it from future wear and tear and is only used on the engine dyno. So we're just pumping in the brake-in oil first before we start anything.
I have a procedure. It's right here on the wall. It's again on that wall. And that procedure, our quality assurance program. This is how we keep shit from screwing up. We
Smart.
pre-oil everything. We catch problems before they become bigger problems.
So we're pumping in the oil to get it all lubricated, and so it's all safe to start, because we don't want oil to be missing from anywhere.
We don't want any non-lubricated dry start. Alright, so that's blocked. We got a filter on it. All the oil passages are plugged. And the starter's on it, so we can spin the motor if we like. Now we're just going to hook some compressed air up to this pre-oiler. I'm going to finish put the starter on, and I'm going to do is spin it over. I'm going to make sure that we're getting oil in the rocker arm
Just about ripping it. Ooh.
Because we have tape on the ports. Whistling, sucking air in, pushing air out. Just blow the tape off, so watch.
Oh my gosh.
So we'll spin it over and watch to make sure we're getting oil down the rocker arms. A little bit of extra oil in the motor.
On the
spin
top.
it over. Then we'll hook the oil pressure gauge up on the dyno. Then we'll go in there and we'll crank it over and we'll watch and make sure it builds oil pressure on its own before the spark plugs in. So you always want to have a film of oil between all the moving parts. Well, if I'm going to run any risk at all of not having oil present, however long it takes for that oil pump to prime, then I certainly don't want there to be pressure on that bearing. So by spinning it over with the spark plugs out, I'm not compressing anything. So basically it's just sitting there spinning.
The spark plugs would stop that from...
Spark plugs would create compression because right now it's just going to be blowing air out.
Because it's closing it all off.
Also, I leave the tape on the intake ports because if it can't pull air in, it has nothing to compress. So between that and the spark plugs being out, there's not any pressure on those rod bearings until we know that we're getting oil. That's oil pressure gauge.
Not good?
Perfect.
Is it?
Cranking.
Oh my god, your face is scaring me. I'm like, ah. Like, do we have to take these off? Is it not breathing?
We'll take those off in a second. We'll take those off right before we put the intake manifold on. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to drop a bolt down in one of those holes. That really...
Oh yeah.
That really puts a hurt on the whole deal.
Yeah.
Be sure and press that red button. See what says start?
This one?
Yeah, press it.
Is it pumping oil in the...
Yeah, get some oil in there. See this one back here? Don't put so much pre-lube on there. See the fresh oil that's running out of that rocker arm, running down that rocker arm, the second one back.
Oh yeah.
Main thing we want to know is that we're getting plenty of oil.
That was so cool to feel the air.
Yeah, that's
how it works.
Now, next thing we do is we'll do a pre-dyno compression test. Sometimes I do it on all 8 cylinders. Sometimes I just do a couple, but I like to know I like to know how much an engine pumps, just from my own reference, based on the compression ratio of the camshaft.
Yeah.
It's just good to have that data. So a lot of times I'll do a pre-run compression test. How much time it saves, just get able to stick that shit back on there. And when you do a compression test, to do it properly, you need to have the throttle blade open or not have any restrictions on the intake side. 5 puffs. 210 pounds. You're salted.
What kind of pounds are we shooting for?
I'd be happy with 180 on this, and honestly, this is not a totally accurate test because the lifters aren't completely pumped up with non-aerated oil, so the cam is actually acting smaller than it is now, meaning it's going to give us more cylinder pressure because the intake's going to be closing earlier because the lifters aren't completely full of oil. After we run it, it'll probably be a little less. If I got a mechanical problem, I want to know before I start it up and have to start troubleshooting it.
Woo! Should you put this where the spark plugs go?
In place of the spark plug. It's the only gateway to the cylinder.
Alright, so we're gonna be testing the compression of my motor. Just that one that I just tested, it spit out like white smoke.
Yeah.
I was like, oh gosh.
You got like 15 pounds difference or something. Look into it.
15 pounds isn't that much though.
Yeah, but it means that there's something different. Now you may not notice it now, but what if an intake valve or an exhaust valve is leaking just a little bit? It's enough to make 15 pounds. Well, yeah, it probably wouldn't even affect the horsepower much now, but what happens in 20,000 miles and that valve's leaking and it ends up burning?
Yeah. Well, none of them are at 0, so that's good. Right under 200, they're all the same. Yeah. Same thing, yeah.
Main thing is we know we don't have any valve train issues. We have the same ring seal on every cylinder. We know we don't have an assembly problem at this point. So if something goes bad, it's because we broke it.
Perfect.
That's right when we got it.
No.
She's never going to want to let this carburetor go when she sees this motor.
No, I know.
This thing's already looking sick with this thing on it.
She's gonna want to cut a whole big hole in her head, go carbureted on her Camaro.
A huge disc just out of the hood. Polished and
Put those
teal.
nuts on there.
Like saying scoop, 4-link rear. I can see it.
Yeah.
Carburetors are just bad for emissions. Is that why they just stopped it?
Yeah, I mean they're not as emissions friendly as fuel injection.
So why they changed it?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest reasons. You know, drivability on a street car, you can actually control your air-fuel ratio more precisely with fuel injection. But for races, race engines they're still pretty good.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat a carburetor on a naturally aspirated deal. And nitrous gas still, a lot of nitrous gas still run carburetors. We're the 9/16 inch, snug this slightly.
Well, we got the engine all on the Engine Dyno, and basically we have to connect every single part that you would on a car onto the engine itself. So every single line, all the coil packs, all the wires in itself. Of course he starts it behind me. Flickering the lights! Run! Press this down. Hold on. 744?
Come on, Aaron, you can get 750 out of it.
Oh my gosh.
Look at that. 732 and still climbing.
732?
Yeah, I am climbing. We still haven't found these.
Oh!
Picture these there.
Oh, right there. 732.
I just ran a higher RPMs. I went
Okay.
my full stop the first time at 6,600. We took it to 6,900 that time.
6,900? Holy
Yeah.
crap.
So we were 717 and
732.
6,500, 720. So it's getting hotter. So actually, if we made a cool down pull, it'd probably pick up some power. I'm gonna take it up. I'm gonna get it up. I'm really just breaking it in. It'll keep making power as it breaks in too. So.
That thing's aggressive. It moves so much. 738?
Yeah, it's still trying to make power.
Woo!
And like I said, all that's going to change with the intake manifold. So
Yeah.
I figured we'd be somewhere in the low sevens on the carburetor,
Well, your guess was 670 on this.
on the MSD.
Just making some good power. He was keeping it low on me. He said, oh, maybe it'll make 670 on the Engine Dyno, and then here we are. It's at like almost 740. It's really impressive. And we are on break-in oil right now. We have to break in the motor, but he keeps wanting to give us more power at the higher RPMs we go. To make another one?
Why not?
That sounded way higher. 740 too?
7,000. I think we finally found peak at 7,000.
Heck yeah. Alright, so we just tested the power with the carburetor. So now we're going to test it with the MSD atomic intake manifold, and we'll see what she puts down. It will probably bring in more torque and then lessen the overall horsepower. Obviously be a lot less since it's not the carburetor. But this is sanded down, so then the colors will all match, and I might paint it down the road, but it looks pretty clean all black. So we're gonna install this on the engine while it's on the Engine Dyno. So not your typical install process, but this is how we're doing it. And they did have to sand down these areas of the intake manifold to fit with the fuel rails and the coil packs. Sits in perfectly. Very small changes just to make it sit in perfect because we don't want it to be floating or not fit perfectly. She's pretty. I don't think they go a certain way, right? This way. God, these are so easy to install. It has a little line at the top, and I'm just lining it up where the line comes out of the intake manifold. Intake manifolds are one of the few mods that you can literally just buy and bolt on instantly. It's like the easiest thing. Didn't even have to read the instructions. Now I'm gonna do this backwards. And this is so it seals so no air escapes, which in turn we would lose power. And it wouldn't be good if it was leaking. So then the rubber expands and it seals it completely. And boom, all the gaskets are on in literally 30 seconds. And they're all on. So now that we have the MSD intake manifold, I also got the MSD fuel rails, and it came with all these fittings, so I gotta figure out what application these are, and it doesn't say.
I think these are the ones we use. Group B is going to be L7. We always tell us,
Like test fit it.
be sure put an injector on each side.
Smart.
Everything clears. Let's see what in there.
Clears?
And it's perfect.
Are you putting in the injectors?
I'm torquing the intake manifold. These plastic ones, it's kind of a long process. It's not like a metal one where you just put it down and torque it. You got to sit here
Because it'll flex.
work them a quarter of a turn at a time for a long time. I've already got these injectors lubricated a little bit. So.
Is that paint?
Yes.
Looks good.
Thank you. We did the front cover
The oil pan.
and the oil pan, yeah, not the rear cover. So you can see, here's the atomic fuel rails, and then we have the fuel injectors. We have FIC fuel injectors right now. We will be changing those soon enough. And then a 90mm throttle body. We will be changing the throttle body on the car as well, but this is just for tuning purposes, and we might change out the size of the throttle body just to see how it does on the Engine Dyno, so we can just test out different numbers and see which throttle body actually makes the biggest difference. But this motor is absolutely gorgeous. I'm excited to get it in my car.
Better. Try. And that's just what it takes. I can sit here for an hour and I get this thing to auto.
Yeah.
But I just got to keep finding what it's happy with in here. But you only get a split second to find out, you know.
Right.
It hits that place, you got to take a little fuel out. Does it get a little happier? You just got to play with it. And that's a lot of what tuning is. Like I said, it's a certain amount of it's math. You calculate pretty much what based on the power, what the fuel consumption is going to be up there wide open throttle. Wide open throttle, the max effort tuning is the absolute easiest part of tuning. The bitch is all the drivability,
The idle and the dying,
the startup and the coast down and the recovery. That's where you spend all your time, tuning the fuel system. Timing changes, all we just fatten up the air fuel. A little more right there.
716.
Right there, it didn't care. It liked the timing, didn't it? Yeah. Although it didn't like it crazy amount. I mean, we lost very little power, really.
That's 7,528.
Yeah. It wasn't anywhere I expect to lose up top, and that's where we lost it.
Yeah.
Lost torque up top? It's all
Yeah,
the fives.
I took 2 degrees of timing out of it. What we're doing is we're fishing. We're trying to find the sweet spot where the motor wants to be, because every combustion chamber and compression ratio and cam profile is going to yield a little bit different need for ignition timing. And the best way to find that is what we call mean best torque. So we just basically we know within a few degrees where it's going to probably be happy, and we try to get similar conditions. So that's why we're looking at oil temperature and things like that, and then we'll put a degree in and put another degree in and maybe take 2 out, and we see how the engine responds, and then that tells us kind of where mean best torque is, and that gives us a starting spot for our time.
See what's the best.
Yeah. Let's take the throttle body. Yeah. I think we've learned all we can learn here. We know about where it's happy on timing, so I can tell Ben and Ryan kind of what it likes there.
All right, MSD manifold made about 716 with like a 90mm throttle body. So now we're gonna put on the 102mm throttle body and see how much of a difference it made. It made pretty decent torque, and with the timing it was all kind of around the same. We're trying to bring up the torque just for road course use. We want torque as high as possible instead of pushing crazy horsepower numbers. But we're gonna try the 102mm throttle body and see how much more power it makes, or if it even lessens the power, because it's not always about the throttle body size. Sometimes it helps you, sometimes it doesn't, based on your specific application. Well, we figured out that the the 102 millimeter throttle body definitely helped the engine because it wasn't sucking in the full amount of air that it needed with the 90 millimeter throttle body. So with the 102, it was perfect. You got so much more power out of it. We kind of just came to a conclusion on this is probably what it's gonna make. So we have a full sheet here, and it tells you your RPMs on the way left, and then it tells you how much torque you make at that amount of RPMs, along with your power and much more, along with the displacement and everything. But really, we're really only looking at the torque and how much power it makes. And so it maxed out at about 733 at 6,500 RPMs, which is perfect. But what is really impressive about this is one of the main reasons is why I chose this intake manifold is because I was trying to push more torque, being a road course build. So the torque is insane all the way throughout, even all the way down at 4,700 RPMs, it's at 605 pounds of torque. It's a lot of torque. But 733 is crazy for the flywheel. I know a lot of people were messaging me and they were guessing, oh, it makes 670 to the flywheel and all that. And I'm like, nope, it made an impressive amount of power. And it's definitely because of these heads as well, along with the 416. It made it definitely a lot more power with the 416 over just doing the Max 2.0 package on the heads. They also have data about people testing the 416s without their head package and just sticking with the LS3 heads and porting those. And those numbers were significantly lower than what the Max 2.0 package is showing. She did really good, and she's already really cool, and she's pretty while doing it. So it's very impressive what they're putting out. So now we gotta take off this motor off the engine dyno and get this thing going inside the car.